let's begin with the broader optics. Rubio met with Macron amid calls for a Ukraine ceasefire. Does this visit mark diplomatic progress, or is it more posturing?
Well, it's maybe a little bit of both. I think both parties want this war to end, and I don't think there's any dispute about that. The question is, the real wild card here is Putin. So, as far as I, excuse me, as far as I know, there's no major differences between Macron and the U.S. or France and the U.S. Perhaps there have been over the last 2.5 years since the war started, the last 3 years. But I don't think there's any major differences in policy now.
Okay, well, Rubio also delivered a message from President Trump to push for Europe to raise NATO spending to 5% of
Yeah.
its GDP. How realistic is this demand politically and economically for a country like France and other EU partners?
Well, I think it's a valid request, and I don't think it's doable in the near term, but
Mm.
I do think if they made a commitment to reach those kind of targets in the long run, that would be very welcome to the U.S. The U.S. has to pivot to Asia. During the Obama administration, they basically shut down the U.S. capabilities of a two-front war, and that's important to keep in mind. So, we really need the Europeans to step in here.
Okay, well, with Rubio's trip, some European officials suggested that Trump's direct contact with Putin is somehow undermining NATO unity. Do you think that Trump's strategy is complicating the Western position, or is this a tactic by Trump to pressure, its Western allies into investing more in NATO?
Oh no, I don't think it's his effort or his means to get more spending. I think that's been clear for 8 years now. It's actually been clear even to past presidents like President Obama. So that's not new. The U.S. encouraging Europeans to spend more. What is new is the war in Ukraine, and so if anything, it's elevated the weakness of the European allies and their inability to defend, not only to defend allies, but to defend themselves. So this is something that's important to President Trump. But I think in terms of the specific conflict here, I think that yeah, I would imagine the Europeans, especially Macron, were disappointed in some of the way that President Trump was negotiating.